Let me ask you this. Okay, as a plaintiff lawyer, what can lawyers among us do to, because first of all, the perception, which some of it is deserved, and we're going to be talking about that in the second half, but a lot of it is brought on by the media hype and everything. How can we as lawyers, I know a lot of lawyers watch this show, how can we also mobilize the people we know?
Well, one of our problems as lawyers, as plaintiffs' lawyers, has been that many of us have thought that just throwing money at the problem was going to solve it. Give campaign contributions, spend a little money on this, a little on that. People can't get in a spending contest with the big rich. You're going to lose every time. Every time. So what it takes is personal contact with the people in the community. Things like we're doing here today, where we can take time and explain some of these things, because some of them are pretty complicated. You can't do it in a 30 or 60-second soundbite. It's a matter of getting out and explaining what's going on, explaining why it is. When somebody comes in and wants you to take a case and you can't take it, don't just say, we're not going to do it, or go see somebody else. Take a few minutes and explain why you can't do it, why it is that you can maybe win the case, but they won't see anything as a result of your win. And explain to them how they can go about helping change that to where it won't happen to anybody else. Getting involved personally in the community is probably the best thing that we can do.
Well, and you're right, Bill, like programs like this where we're talking to people out there, and now with the internet, as I was saying, we can get this, put it on a website, we can send it out to our mail list of people, send the link, have people watch it, and kind of have people understand the myths, dispel those myths and misunderstandings about the legal system. A lot of people have this, and you're right, a lot of people have come to me on nursing home abuse cases, which I still do on occasion, and medical malpractice, because really the laws have changed it. But you try to tell them, if we try the case, it's going to try about $100,000 of money into it at least, up to trial and appeal and things, and then to get experts to go through those hoops, after Medicaid liens, after all these expenses, what's there left, and are they ready to put in that 3 to 5 years and relive that agony?
Exactly.
Over and over
terrible.
and over again.
Terrible. And the other thing is, do not be afraid to stand up and be heard. There are too many of us that want to sit back. I'll talk to people about a problem. They'll give me a world of information, and then they'll say, don't use my name. Don't use my name because somebody may not like it. I mean, you got to be willing to stand up and be counted.
You're right. You're right.
When I agreed to represent Joe Cisneros in the desegregation case here in Corpus Christi, it meant my wife didn't get to be in the junior league or go to the country club or anything else, but it didn't make any difference because what we were doing was right.
Well, let me talk about that case, because a lot of people don't know all the facts behind it. Can you kind of sum up back then the way the racial tensions were, inequality, the things that you had to face, and your own pressures in your personal life, like you said with your wife and everything? It's not easy doing the right thing.
It is not. I had to go to the Secret Service on one occasion because a fellow personally offered me some violence in person in my face.
What was going on with that case back then, and how did Joe Cisneros originally come to you?
Well, we represented, back in those days, the steel workers, and Joe was a steel worker. And the steel workers, along with Dr. Hector Garcia, who was also a client of ours, my partner then was Jim DeAnda, and Jim was his personal lawyer. They came to us and asked if we would do that case along with the lawyer by the name of Jim Wolf out of Houston, and we agreed to do that. Wow. It was, that was when we get down, people leaving town because there was a potential of busing, which actually came to pass. People didn't like it. They just flat didn't like it.
Well, and Amador Garcia, I brought him on. I remember he was around at that time too, and he was talking about Dr. Hector and him being thrown in jail. A lot of people forget that, ladies and gentlemen, 40 years passes like this. Where does it all go? But we shouldn't forget that. And like you were saying, a lot of the young people, and I say this on especially Latinos that are coming up that are 20 years younger than me, that you've got to think about that you're taking everything you have for granted. And also, don't forget that there were white lawyers that were the ones in the South that were standing up for blacks and Hispanics at the time. And we stand on the shoulders of people like Dr. Hector Garcia. And we stand on the shoulders of the people and take it for granted. And just remember that being able to eat in the same restaurants, the same water fountains, going to the same schools, that was just over the last couple of generations. But before then, it was a whole different world. So tell me a little bit more. What was the end result after how much time with the Cisneros case? Because a lot of people got to remember this. This is an important case.
The case itself took 2 or 3 years, and then it took many years after that to actually see the results of what was going on. And as of now, of course, we're in pretty good shape compared to what we were then. Although I still think that there's discrimination. Maybe it's economic, socioeconomic, but it's not like it ought to be.
Amador Garcia said it best when he said, Amador, he's a crazy guy. I love it. He said, just because you've got barbecue and Miller Lite and the Cowboys on Sunday with 2 pickups in the driveway, don't forget where you came from. And don't forget how far it took with men like Mr. Edwards and Joe Cisneros and Hector P. Garcia, the doctor, God rest his soul, that did all these things for us. And we've got a couple of minutes left, but I want to underline that Mr. Edwards, you don't know what a pleasure it is to have him on, because I bring on the best trial attorneys in America. For the last 3 decades, he's been noted as one of the best trial lawyers in America. It's a pleasure to have him on, and for people to listen to his message. And in the last couple of minutes, before we break and we get into the meat and potatoes of what we're talking about, I give you the floor. What can you tell people out there about, the legal system and their rights?
Well, you kind of brushed on the business about what Amador said about the 6-pack and the cars and so forth. I've told a lot of people that one of our major problems is that we're dealing now with what I call a 6-pack population. As long as people can drive to the convenience store and buy a 6-pack, everything's okay. But if they're put to the election of driving to the store and getting 3 because of the cost of gasoline, that's a major problem, okay? So the price of gasoline disturbs them. The loss of their rights, like the privacy and the things that happened under the Patriot Act and under the Bush administration, things like that, don't even move them.
It's amazing.
And until and unless our population starts paying attention, bad things are going to happen. All you got to do is see what's going on in Iran.
That's right. I mean, there's upheaval in the streets, and we've got to think about that, ladies and gentlemen. When we come back, we're not just going to send this message and talk more about the law and what's going on, but the efforts that men like Mr. Edwards are doing to police our own profession, to stop what people call the ambulance chasing, to stop what's called the solicitation, knocking on doors, signing up cases, and your rights and remedies if you have been solicited. So before that, I just want to thank our sponsors. Vasquez Flores Home Health, 361-881-9922. Mr. Reyna, I know you're out there, sitting out there having a bag of potato chips after a long day. The Reyna Law Firm. You can contact him at 361-993-8100. Thank you for your support. And also, my good friends in Houston, Texas, thematthewslawfirm.com. That's www.thematthewslawfirm.com. Dave Matthews doing a great job out there. My salute to people in Houston and the trial lawyers out there doing everything they can. Well, you're listening to Mr. Bill Edwards, the founder of the Edwards Law Firm. We're going to come back and talk about the meat and potatoes of what we're looking at, policing our own profession, and also protecting the public from being solicited and ambulance chased when we come back.